One of the vaccines that's been receiving a lot of media attention in recent years is the HPV vaccine. The vaccine protects against the HPV virus, which can cause cancer and genital warts in men and women. 95% of all sexually active adults will come across the virus at some point in their lifetime. Most HPV infections don't need treatment because your body can clear the virus itself. But in some people, the infection can develop into disease. James Paul O'Neill is from Beaumont Hospital and the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland.
There are many forms of the HPV virus. This is a very common virus. There are over 200 different forms. Unfortunately, it can cause both benign disease and malignant disease. The benign components of HPV disease are genital warts and another disease process called respiratory papillomatosis. From a cancer perspective, I suppose we know about cervical cancer and the link to HPV. There's probably about 550 HPV-driven cancers in Ireland per year.
Wow.
Of those, 330 will be cervical cancer. And of those women, approximately 100 will die from their disease. These are people. When we talk about 550 Irish people developing HPV cancer, 300 of those being cervical cancer and 100 of those people dying, that's 100 women dying of their disease and the impact on their families. And we've had some remarkable people with HPV disease who have done their absolute best to show us the realities of what this disease process is and the benefits of vaccination.
Perhaps the most prominent activist who campaigned for young women to take the HPV vaccine was Laura Brennan.
She loved singing, she was into sport, she won an All-Ireland Féile football medal with the banner at 14. As a child, more often than not, her and I were at loggerheads because she was the youngest of 4 children and she was the only girl in the house, and she often got her way despite throwing tantrum aplenty. But in her teenage years, she didn't excel in school. She was academically bright, but she would say herself that she spent more time outside the classroom doors than inside them because she was a chatterbox. But I suppose in recent years, she's used her voice for the good.
Presumably then, the day of her diagnosis is one that you all remember darkly.
Yeah, absolutely. In November 17, after noticing abnormal bleeding from her cervix, she went to her GP and she got various scans, and it came back that it was cervical cancer, and we were shocked, but she was as cool as a breeze, and she used to say that, "I got this, don't worry," you know, and we felt that everything was under control. And it was. She got the all clear after 6 months of treatment, but that was pretty short-lived. 2 months later, she went back and she just felt everything wasn't right with her body. She got a scan and it confirmed that her cancer had spread and it was no longer curable. And yeah, that was a hammer blow for us.
What drove her decision to be public in her story?
It was the right thing to do. She knew that she was in a position where she could help others. She contacted HSE and she said if there was anything she could do by sharing her story, she was willing to do that. And as a family, we were only delighted to support her, knowing that every time she told her story, it had the potential to save a life.
When a patient comes out in that way, there's often a backlash on social media for whatever reason. How did that affect Laura?
There was a lot of nasty online comments. You know, people were saying that she was being paid by Big Pharma to promote the vaccine. She was told that it was her own fault because she was sexually active before marriage. She was told that she wasn't suffering from cancer and that she was a puppet for the HSE. And I think deep down we felt sorry for these people, you know. We felt we were bigger than that, and Laura was definitely bigger than that. She had bigger battles in her own life than dealing with such comments.
She must have felt a great sense of personal achievement when she announced the change in uptake from what was 50% to 70% in March.
Well, she talked to the nation on that. You know, she sat on that couch over there just a week before she passed away, announcing that the uptake rate had reached 70%, and it was a huge milestone. It really verified that people had warmed to her. Hearing the patient's voice made it real for everybody. Yeah.
7 out of 10 is great, but like I've always said, I won't rest until as many of our young people as possible are vaccinated. So let's keep the change going, one vaccine at a time. Thank you for listening. Remember to get the facts and get the vaccine. Protect your future.
Awareness and uptake of the vaccine has markedly improved due to Laura and her family's story. But there are a number of other diseases that can be prevented by the HPV vaccine.
HPV is not gender specific. We have anogenital cancers in male and females. We also have the emergence of head and neck cancers that are associated with HPV. And that's in a specific area of the head and neck called the oropharynx, which is your base of tongue and your tonsil region.
Head and neck cancer is the 6th most common cancer worldwide. As a head and neck surgeon, Paul is concerned about recent evidence that demonstrates an annual increase in the rates of HPV-associated head and neck cancer. What is the likelihood of us seeing more of these sort of HPV-driven cancers if we don't get on top of it?
So in relation to head and neck cancer, it's a really interesting story. On one level, we have what's called a chemical carcinogenic-driven cancer, smoking, drinking. And now we have a new stream, which is a viral-driven cancer. So essentially a new disease. This is a male-dominated, often not necessarily smokers or drinkers, and this in the United States has surpassed cervical cancer. So this isn't going to go away, but what we know about all of these HPV cancers is that type 16 is the main player. So if we have a vaccine which is highly effective against that, well then we can not only reduce these cancers, but eliminate these cancers.
The first HPV vaccine became available in 2006, and in September 2019, the Irish government extended the HPV school vaccination to girls and boys in their first year of secondary school.
One of the problems with the HPV vaccine is that we listen to social media. We listen to a terrible story about someone's reaction. We don't know if this is justified, it's not scientific. If I say to you, oh, it's safe, that's pretty meaningless, okay? Let's look at the evidence. By 2006, pre-licensure studies, there had been 7 phase 3 trials showing the efficacy and the safety of the vaccine. Since then, there have been 15 trials looking at over 1 million pre-adolescent, adolescent, and adults, again showing the same thing, its safety and the fact that it's highly effective. So the World WHO, they have investigated on multiple occasions, and their conclusions are the same. The European Medicines Board, they have investigated it and their conclusions are the same. HICWA here in Ireland have investigated and their conclusions are the same. So to quote the Minister of Health in Australia, the jury's not out, the jury is very much in.
Are there any side effects to the HPV vaccine?
Absolutely. Any drug will have a side effect profile, of course. But remember, 213 million people around the world have now been vaccinated with the HPV vaccine. And if you look at some of the side effects that have been thrown at this vaccine, for example, chronic fatigue syndrome, thromboembolic disease, complex regional pain syndrome, etc., are we seeing more, and they're legitimate conditions, are we seeing more of that now? No, we're not. So this is a safe vaccine overall. Yes, you may have a sore arm, just like if you have the flu jab, you may have a sore arm after that too. But the benefits of that, weigh that up. The best way to treat cancer is don't get cancer. So give your child that opportunity.
The hugely important research into vaccines will continue.